Hello, everybody from headquarters. This is a special announcement that I just wanted to let you guys know that my Teach Me ADHD class is open because I just am finishing a second round with current detectives. They are graduating, so over the next couple weeks, you're going to see those pictures of the graduates. I'm so proud of them all. And I'll be ready to accept up to 20 new junior and senior detectives starting mid-April. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of information about it in case you're kind of wondering about whether or not to enroll and what it's all about. So I wanted to just share some information with you. So this webinar is helping your child understand their ADHD superpowers without the overwhelm and just fun. And so wanted to go through this with you. So just so I know if you're here, just go ahead and um, put hashtag live if you're watching this live or hashtag replay if you're watching this on replay. So that way when I go back through to the video, I can make sure to answer questions, okay? So of those of you who are watching and have a child with ADHD, I'm curious to know who had received the diagnosis just within the last 6 months and then over 6 months, because oftentimes the families that take this course are either newly diagnosed, recently and just trying to understand what to do next step wise for treatment, and then otherwise families who've been struggling on this path, not feeling like they have things right where they need it to be, and also just kind of what your why is for watching this video, right? Okay, so just to set the stage, ADHD is very common. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. 6.2 million children and teens have ever been diagnosed with ADHD in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control. That's a lot of children, and ADHD is one of the most common conditions that general pediatricians encounter in the clinic. But we know that ADHD is usually not just ADHD, and that's what makes it also challenging. So put on top of the fact that, children with ADHD might be hyperactive or impulsive or have inattention issues. They have executive functioning deficits, which I'll talk to you in a little bit. But we also know that it's not uncommon for kids with ADHD to have something else going on too. And that complicates the picture when you're trying to parent a child who may be strong-willed or who might have anxiety. So we know 5 in 10 children with ADHD have another conduct or problem or a behavior problem. But we also know 3 in 10 children with ADHD also suffer from anxiety. Again, it can make the clinical picture very challenging and not quite sure like how to approach a child when you're struggling with those big, strong emotions. And we know that ADHD not only affects the child, but it affects the family, right? So behavior feels like a wrecking ball sometimes. This came from a qualitative study that was done with a group, and it was published last year. So they interviewed several families and looked at different themes that came up. And one of the ones was that it just felt like, there's a wrecking ball, kind of that they're having to sort of, put out fires all the time because their children are high energy, reactive, never knowing how that child's going to react time to time, high conflict, and struggling at home and school. And some families even felt like they were coping with a quote war at home, just because there's a lot of stress and strain that's present in households when you are raising a child with ADHD. So, is this you? Are you feeling overwhelmed at how to create a positive relationship with your child? Are you feeling worry or guilt on how to react to your child? Do you get stressed when the school emails or calls you? Are you worried about your child's self esteem? Now imagine if you can stop the overwhelm and have fun with your child. Stop feeling so worried or guilty because you can reset your own emotions. Stop feeling as stressed because you and your child can work with the school. And stop worrying because your child is happy and proud of their accomplishments. So this is a testimonial from one of my past graduates. This is the boss and Billy the Zombie. My 11-year-old daughter and I just completed the pilot of Dr. Bauer's Teach Me ADHD course. I am so glad that we did it. It taught us a lot about ADHD and provided us with the tools for everyday life. We had a lot of fun as detectives and doing the missions together. I would highly recommend the class for not only building your ADHD knowledge, but for also building your relationship with your child. That was a very lovely testimonial. So today you'll be leaving this webinar with some tools that you can start using today to help your child discover their ADHD superpowers. You're in the right place if your child was recently diagnosed with ADHD. You're in the right place if you think treatment so far has not really helped. You're in the right place if you don't want your child to think something is wrong with them. You're in the right place if you wish to feel more confident in handling what life throws your way. Okay? You're worth it, so just close that email, close your 20 different browsers, stop scrolling through your Facebook, close the door. Like, I want you to be able to watch this and refer back to it, okay? So why should you trust me? Obviously, many of you here know that I am Dr. Nerissa Bauer. I'm a behavioral pediatrician. I went to residency training in San Diego, got my master's of public health in Seattle, finished that in 2006, and it was in Seattle that I started a foster care clinic and saw and worked with a lot of kids who had behavior problems. And at the time, I didn't have kids, and at the time, I wasn't quite sure how to best support families. I'll be honest. You know, I knew that I could prescribe medication, but that didn't feel right to me. The most important thing at that time, I wanted to make sure to support the family from disrupting placement and putting the child back in the system. So I found one of my most important mentors in my life. Her name is Carolyn Webster Stratton, the developer of the Incredible Years curriculum, where I learned how to coach parents about play, praise, timeout, consequences, rewards, all the things that you think pediatricians should know. Um, but, you know, that was also a very pivotal moment in my life because not only did I learn that curriculum that prior to recently, pediatricians were not really learning in a systematic way, but I fell in love with the group format. I mean, I just saw the power of the group. When you put strangers together who are united by the common goal of wanting to help their child and learn better ways to become better parents, more happy with how they're interacting with their child. And then over the course of 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and in my case, that was a 22-week program, you just see you're not alone. You're not alone. Your stories you start hearing snippets in other people's stories, right? Because in the moment it can be so defeating, so isolating. You can feel really lonely and thinking, oh my gosh, why is this never ending? Like nobody else is suffering like this. But really, so many challenges are very common when we're raising kids, kids with ADHD, special needs, other complex kids, right? And the group makes it possible to understand that there are other people out there that are struggling and feeling the same way you are. And that's why the group model is so important to what I do. So I have helped other families like yours. And as you know, I'm a blogger. I'm doing the Facebook Live shows, bringing on guests and topics to talk about the importance of behavioral health, wellness, and parenting issues because I feel so important that I just want people to have this information, right? And we need to have that conversation. We need to destigmatize behavioral health and mental health issues. We need to support families who are going through these challenges. And so that's why I love the work that I'm doing now. So imagine if you and your child could share how you were feeling without yelling or tears. Imagine you and your child had a common language to understand each other and have the tools to tackle each challenge as a team. And you and your child had more good days than not, right? So the one thing is, and this is what I firmly believe, is that you both need to onboard together. It's going to be really important that after a diagnosis of ADHD, anxiety, or whatnot, you need to be learning and walking down that path together. right? So, and yes, you and your child can take a class together on Zoom and have fun. I'll be honest, one of my class times is Tuesday at 6 to 7 p.m. We're finishing our last one this Tuesday, and this is the second time I've done the class on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock at night. I was terrified, to say the least, at first because I knew it's kind of that bewitching hour. And those detectives are rocking it. They are loving the class, they're engaged, they're interacting with each other, and it's a lot of fun. Like, yes, I'm emotive and I'm bringing all this energy to what I'm doing, but it's doable. And so if you have questions or would like to see a mini class simulation, just drop me a line because I do plan to do that for future potential junior detectives. So I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. Parenting a child with ADHD can feel really lonely, especially on those bad days. Feeling uncertainty doesn't feel good for anybody. So if you're feeling that, imagine what your child is feeling like too. So gaining the knowledge along with a roadmap of actionable steps can help. And then take action to learn more, right? You can't do this by yourself. You've got to do it alongside your child because you're both in it together. So this is kind of some of the tips that I've taken from teaching this class and kind of colored with all my past experiences of teaching group parenting programs. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, guilt, shame, anxiety, I want you to know that your kids are probably feeling that too, especially after, getting a diagnosis of ADHD. But parents can be their child's emotion coach. And now what does that mean? That means labeling emotions in the moment because kids with ADHD have shorter attention spans. So you want to label in the moment and you want to not just label the negative emotions, you want to label the positive ones too. Okay, so throughout the course, we talk about the importance of identifying emotions, but also giving kids those words so that they can begin to use it themselves and not show you how they're feeling with their bodies, right? So be an emotion coach, right? Be a sports announcer. So if you've ever watched football, there's usually one commentator who's the one who's describing what's happening on the screen, right? He's got the ball, he's at the 40-yard line, the 30-yard line, the 20-yard line, and oh my gosh, he's at the end goal, so, right? So they are just talking as they are seeing the play unfold. You can do that too, right? You can be talking and labeling what you're seeing, staying with your child, and not having to stay two steps ahead and guessing what they're going to do. Like just label what you think that they're feeling, right? So this is what happens when you do it, right? So before, as they're getting worked up, you start seeing their nonverbals. You can kind of see them clench up, their face getting red. You can sort of tell that they're about to just kind of emote really loudly. And then during it, they're just losing it. They're dysregulated. But then you want to be able to safely de-escalate them, right? So there's two ways you can do this. Proactively as prevention, as you're starting to see some of that tension in their shoulders, in their face, say, "Oh my gosh, it looks like you're frustrated," or, "Oh, that's really hard for you, isn't it? Let me see if I can help you," right? So trying to catch them before they go from 0 to 60. But if they're already dysregulated, it can also help because you can say, "Wow, that's really frustrating. I can see that. You're not happy about that," right? And you want to say, "I see you. I get you." And what do you think would happen when a parent says that to you? Imagine yourself kind of getting like really upset and somebody says, your best friend says, "You know what? I get it. You had such an awful day today. It was awful." Like all of a sudden you're like, "Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. That's what I'm feeling." And then all of a sudden it sort of lets that air out of that balloon and you start kind of taking your breaths and you start realizing that, someone right here is seeing what I'm feeling and they get me. And that is the key to really bringing down those strong negative emotions. So please don't discount this because this is such an important skill, the power of communication and labeling emotions in the moment. So again, think about how did it feel to have someone see you, right? It feels good when your best friend can understand you from, the moment you start talking, right? You just need that someone to validate how you're feeling, right? So I challenge you today, if you're watching this and you're learning this for the first time, what do you think? Can you do this during mealtime? Can you do it after school or at bedtime? Just any moment, when you're with your child, just start talking out loud. You might feel a little bit embarrassed to just do this, but it's a teachable skill, and that's one of the first skills that we teach in our positive parenting workshops, all hands down. It's a very important skill to be able to communicate to your child that you see them, but it also helps to validate them and normalize it because, and again, you can role model it too. You can also share your feelings when you're feeling upset, you're feeling frustrated. It helps them understand that even parents get really emotional or get really frustrated or really angry. But then you can use that as a teachable moment to then show them what you do instead. You can say, I was so frustrated at work, but I just stepped out and took my deep breaths, and it took me a little bit. But as I started feeling my heart stop racing, and I could just take 5 full deep breaths, I knew I was ready to go back in there. So that's going to be really important. And they're listening. Every time you talk out loud, share those stories, they're listening. So, tip number 2, invite kids to ask questions, right? So, kids thrive when they can understand what's going on. Find out if your child wants more information. So, I want you to remember what it was like when you got that diagnosis of ADHD. Was your child sitting next to you? Were you at the pediatrician office or another doctor's office? Or were you with a psychologist who was giving you the report after, the long day of testing, right? So, how did you feel when you heard about that diagnosis? I'll tell you that sometimes kids can hear the word ADHD and they feel like, oh, did I catch something? Is something bad? Like, did I do something bad? Or am I gonna die from this? Or what did I do? Like, why am I getting ADHD? Do you have ADHD? Like, kids, their thought process can go 100 miles a minute after they hear that. And it's really important as adults that we step back and we always invite them to ask questions because they could be kind of having these conversations in their brain and having misconceptions. It can be really scary to get that diagnosis. And we want to invite them to ask questions so that we can meet them where they are, right? So when something happens at school, you'll want to sort of fall back on something like, how are you feeling? Rate it on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being great, 1 being bad, and 5 being just okay. And if you can get into the habit of doing these mood checks with your kids or helping them identify feelings on a scale from 1 to 10, something visual, it can be really, really helpful for you and your child to begin to connect to and build that common language with each other, right? So that's takeaway number 2, is really sort of inviting your child to ask questions so that you can answer and put some of those fears or misconceptions to rest. Tip number 3 is help your child get curious about how their brain works. So we know that ADHD is a brain-based condition, and throughout the course, we have a detectives theme. We're at the All Deeds Help Detective Agency, right? And one of the things that I invite you to do is to say to your child, you know what? Let's be detectives and take some field notes today and see what we learn. Let's reconvene after school and see what field notes you got, and then we can walk through it together, right? So again, invoking that kind of framework to be detectives together, just to look at the facts, to gather information about why this problem occurrence keeps happening, can be really helpful for setting the stage for problem solving, right? So again, when you're trying to be a detective, you get into problem solving mode. You're going to want to look for all the clues. You want to check and recheck the facts at hand. You never want to just jump to conclusions. You want to understand the context of what's going on, and you want to ask lots of questions. So really putting on the mindset of helping develop your child as a detective and working with them being a detective is really a nice way to sort of change that mind shift and go into problem solving. So what is problem solving with kids? I'm going to give you the 5 steps, okay? So 1 is inviting your child to explain their point of view, right? And without interruptions, right? And this also helps when you have 2 bickering children, fighting all the time. You can moderate it, but one person goes first without getting interrupted. The second person goes next, sharing their point of view. Again, sticking to the facts, no color, no judgment, right? We're just, being detectives. We're just saying what we notice. And then this third step is probably the most important step is, brainstorming all possible solutions. So let's imagine that your child got really frustrated during math and in the middle of a test threw pencil across the room and it ended up hitting somebody else in the face. Oh my gosh, right? And you got a phone call because somebody got hurt. Rather than starting after school saying, "Hey, Johnny, what happened at school today?" and then your child saying, "Oh, nothing," and then secretly you get kind of upset because you know that that's not true. So I always tell parents, don't set your child up to lie, but instead say, "Hey, Johnny, I want you to go grab your snack, and when you're back, when you have it, come sit down here because I heard from your teacher that." You were really frustrated during math and you threw a pencil and it hit somebody. I'm not mad. I just want to make sure and check in with you about what was happening so that way the next time you get frustrated, we can figure out a different solution. Okay? So again, it's from a different standpoint. You're in the action problem solving mode there. You're not criticizing, but you just want to get curious with your child, being good detectives and trying to help figure out what they can do the next time. So again, brainstorm all possible solutions. So let your child lead this. So okay, so you are getting frustrated with math. What's one thing you could do? Well, if your child says, "I want to do what I did," so okay, well then just write it down. Okay, so you're gonna when you get frustrated, you're gonna throw your pencil across the room. Okay. How about what's something else you could do? Well, I could get my squishy out and squish it. Okay, that's another one. So let's write that one down. We're going to write that one down here on the paper. Okay, what's another thing? Well, I guess I could raise my hand and ask for help. Oh, okay, let's write that one down too. And then if your child's kind of stumped, you can add your own one or two additional solutions and say, wow, we've got 5 here to think through. So let's go through the first one. And you can say, well, you could throw your pencil, but it hit so and so in the face. What happened today? You got in trouble, and I got a phone call. So what do you think? Is that a good solution for next time? Probably not. So let's cross that one off the list. So the second one that you suggested was your squishy ball and squeezing it. So potentially what you could do there, yeah, that might work. What do you think about that one? So that one stays on the list. The third one is then potentially, you said, raising your hand and asking for help, right? So what do you think about that one? You think that one should stay on the list? Okay. So of the two here that we didn't cross off, what do you think you want to try next time? And let's pick one. Okay, great. So I wouldn't stop there though. I would actually pick one and then role model and role play it with your child. Like, you've got them there, they've made a good decision. Go ahead and ask them, well, let's pretend that I'm you and you're the teacher. I'm going to practice what it looks like raising my hand and asking for help. And again, you can kind of be a little silly at first because you want your child to sort of stay with you. Um, and then at least they're kind of processing what you're saying, right? And then you act it out, and they're like, no, mom, do it like this. And so then have them act it out, right? And then you can have them act it out one or two more times, or then bring the brother in. Okay, let's pretend brother's teacher over here, right? So again, just doing that role play so that it flexes those muscles and gets them in the opportunity to try it in a safe space, and then just say, you know what? I think you've got this down. So the next time you get frustrated, I can't wait to hear how that goes for you because I know that you've got this down. This is a different solution that you're going to do. And then tell me about it, right? So that's another way to use problem solving. So tip number 4, and this is especially important, is to encourage small steps towards a goal, but using visuals, right? So an ADHD brain needs to see and not just hear. So this is an example of a visual where there's some words, but paired with a visual. And it's really important to know this because kids with ADHD, they have shorter attention spans, they have problems with attention regulation. It's not that they can't focus, it's just that they don't focus on things that are boring or complicated. They'd much rather be focusing on things that are exciting or that they really love because they just like it that much better.
So it's not necessarily a problem with inattention all the time. It's actually a problem of attention regulation, or knowing how to shift attention from something that's super pleasurable to something not as pleasurable. So again, that's one of the issues, and that's what we learn about in this class, is how to work with an ADHD brain and work out and implement some of these strategies that can help. So visual checklists and timers. Some of you who've taken the class know how much I love visual timers, just like this one here. It's the one in the picture. But I love these much more than just using like an Alexa or like a kitchen timer, because it has that visual reminder here. It has how much time you have left to play on your video game. You can also use it conversely, like if a child doesn't want to sit and do homework, you can say, okay, we're going to set it for 5 minutes, and after that, you can get up and stretch. Because 5 minutes, if you know, if your child can be motivated to do it in smaller steps, and then as they get better and can work consistently towards that 5 minutes, then you can go up to 10 minutes, right? So again, working towards a bigger goal by doing smaller steps, but also relying on visuals, okay? And then in the picture here, we also introduced some trackers for self-management, self-monitoring, because we want to help our kids develop and take autonomy for some of these skills, knowing that parents still have to supervise, but it gives you opportunities to see what they're learning and being excited about it and giving them that feedback. And again, it's all visual, right? So that's the beauty of using visual checklists. And then, when you want to teach your child who has ADHD something new, you want to always break it down and present information simply and visually. Okay, so because that way you can increase attention and lessen the overwhelm of so many extraneous stimuli and distractions and getting lost. And so this is an example of one of my PowerPoint slides. So again, I usually only have 1 or 2 words on each slide because I want them to be able to just focus on that key term. We talk about it, but we also don't put too much on there to distract them. And then we also rely on a lot of mnemonics that are presented visually, and this one is one that we use to learn for how to handle the time after school. Okay, so, oops, I'm going backwards. Don't want to do that. All right, so tip number 5 is to schedule and protect connection time with family. It's really important, especially in this day and age. I mean, it's so important, first of all, because we're socially distancing and all we have is each other, but after a while that can get old too, and we get on each other's nerves. But it's still so important to connect with family face to face with no screens. You want to make sure to connect with your child on that level. Either try thinking about cooperation games, card games, going for a walk, walking the dogs, going on a bike ride, baking together, doing a puzzle together, doing something without technology. That's going to be really important to reconnect, and then teach your child to read other people's signals, having a conversation, and doing that. So in our class, we focus a lot on family missions, which are designed to help reinforce a skill that we learned, but in a fun way that then parent and child can work on together. You send in evidence to headquarters so that I can give feedback. And again, trying to keep it upbeat and positive the whole time. So when parents describe emotions, they help kids know that their feelings are valued. That's really, really important. Step 2 is inviting them to ask questions allows them to feel secure when they know that they can get answers from you, and they don't have to live kind of wondering about these things that they might overhear or are unsure of. They get their trusted information from you. 3 is teaching your child to become a detective puts them in problem solving mode to learn. And it takes all of the extra emotion out of it. You're just checking the facts, you're looking for data, looking at observations, not jumping to conclusions. If you can kind of adopt that philosophy of becoming detectives together whenever you're facing a recurring behavior problem in the house or a recurring issue at school, put on that detective hat or get out, your spy glasses together and take field notes and kind of understand what's happening here so we can figure out a better solution and do the problem solving that I taught you. It just sort of takes the emotion out of things and puts you guys on a problem solving mode. And then using visuals helps ADHD brains see and encourages autonomy and self monitoring, as I mentioned. And then that family time allows you to connect and have fun. This is really important. If you do these 5 steps, you can help change the dynamic between you and your child. You can change the dynamic of your child always feeling like they're not doing what they need to be doing and getting in trouble and hearing no all the time, or not getting support emotionally when they're feeling frustrated, right? If you do all 5 of these things, your kids will discover and uncover their ADHD superpowers, because we want them to experience joy. We want them to experience wins. We want them to experience and know and confidence in themselves, and to be able to celebrate those steps in the right direction, right? So, but I'm here to tell you that when they can learn, see, hear other kids just like them, it's also very empowering to know that too. As a behavioral pediatrician, I have my own private practice. I can coach parents and kids on these 5 principles individually. And yes, we make real improvements, but it's much quicker when it's done in group, because kids also learn that they are not alone. And that is powerful. A child who is impulsive, makes bad choices, is constantly getting sent to the principal or having to sit in a different room and getting pulled out from class, pretty soon, I mean, kids with ADHD, they're smart. And they then quickly realize something's different, something's off about them. But when they're in this group and they see and hear other stories of similar things happening to other kids, and they're like, oh, I am not different. I am not stupid. Other people are feeling like I do. Like, it creates such a powerful mind shift for them to be able to be like, huh, there are things that I can work on, right? So you showed up today because you might be feeling overwhelmed without a roadmap. You showed up today because you want to change the dynamic between you and your child. You showed up today because everything you have tried so far has left you feeling isolated and unsure, right? So great news. You have 2 choices. One is you can do it yourself with what you've learned today. Obviously, like, we read a lot of parenting books in this group, and it might lead to more trial and error, and you might be wishing you had done better by this time next year. Or you can fast track your results to learning how to work with your child, feel confident, and get support from others who understand you and are in the same situations, right? So let me show you what's possible. I'm inviting you to join me in headquarters and take my Teach Me ADHD course for junior and senior detectives. This is 8 weeks of learning and growing together. It's a virtual interactive Zoom course, so kind of in this format, where you guys are going to gain a common language to be able to talk with each other and understand each other. You're going to learn how to engage your child cooperatively and collaboratively as you complete your family missions, right? You'll learn to just infuse that fun together and cheer others on who are doing the same. And this is going to be the most important thing, is that you will have the accountability of a group to report back week to week to headquarters, show evidence of your work during in between sessions that you're working on these skills, right? This is an example of the mission map that you're going to get. We have 8 sessions, 8 deeds, and 8 family missions, right? So the first mission 1 is, what is ADHD? We use this as an opportunity to clear up any misconceptions a child or parent may have about ADHD. We talk about what ADHD is, what it isn't. We talk about famous people who have ADHD. We talk about our strengths, right? And then mission 2 is healthy habits, including healthy eating and sleeping, because we know that when we don't have those 2 things in place, that our brains, whether you have ADHD or not, has a harder time focusing, has a harder time engaging in more complicated tasks. You're more quick to anger. So we encourage kids to understand the importance of healthy sleep and eating and doing some of that self-care, which is part of an ADHD care plan. But we teach them the facts and we teach them the why, and then we give them tools and help them problem solve and think about how they can reach their goals. Okay. Mission 3 is emotion without commotion. Now, this one is a really important one because, as you know, kids with ADHD can get really frustrated really quickly because that emotion regulation is an executive functioning challenge that kids with ADHD have. And if you have a child who also has anxiety, that adds to it as well. So, in this module, we learn about what emotions are, how they relate to the thoughts and feelings, and then we also learn coping strategies, how to settle our glitter so that way the next time we encounter these emotions, both positive and negative, we know what to do with it. And senior detectives learn how to coach kids through these different strategies as well. Mission 4 is all about school planning, right? So we start talking about what is executive functions. We talk about what each of those are, and then we tackle 4 of them. We tackle task initiation, we tackle organization and planning, and then we've also tackled emotion regulation prior, right? And time management. So those are the 4 that we work on in the class. We talk about how to do this after school, and then we also then move to physical activity, and that's another self-care piece. We talk about the importance of that, especially this day and age when kids are going back and forth into remote learning, where all of us were working on screens to some capacity, and we all then are sedentary and sitting and looking at a screen. So we talk about the importance of moving, getting up, being active, getting outside, exercising our bodies and our brains, and taking care of and making sure that we reach our move goals. Session 5 is communication strategies. So we talk about how is the best way to learn to communicate to our parents how we're thinking and feeling, or maybe to our siblings that we're getting frustrated with, or to our teacher when we need to ask for help, or to our doctor when they're talking about ADHD. And I have an opinion now on things, right? So, how do we do that effectively and respectfully? And that session is a theme of game night. And so we talk about and make that fun to as a way to learn how to start those conversations with the important people we need to talk with. Mission 6 is ADHD medicines. We finally get some medications, but we also talk about medications as part of an overall ADHD care plan. And believe it or not, by the end of the 8 weeks, will have covered the importance of all these different things. So that way, at the end, you and your child will have a co-created ADHD care plan to then talk to your child's pediatrician about, right? So we talk about medicines, and it's really important to talk about medicines even if your child is not on medicine, because at some point, whether it be in middle school, high school, college, or as an adult, they may have to decide on their own if medicine is appropriate at that point in time. Why should they want to even consider it? What role does it have in relation to all the other things that we're talking about, learning about today, like self-care and behavioral therapy and parenting support and learning how to relate to others, right? And then school accommodations. So they really get the breadth of what it means to help yourself by thinking what they still need help on, and then how do we get there, right? Session 7 is about gratitude and ways to boost feeling positive because we all have negative thoughts that pop into our mind. And as I said, it's really critical for kids with ADHD to be checking in on their self esteem because these kids oftentimes may have been told, don't do this, don't do that, or they've been sent multiple times to the principal's office or had to have, be pulled out for learning resources, right? And they feel different. ADHD kids are smart, but they often will feel differently, especially as they get older, and they recognize that they may think and learn differently. And so, how do we stay positive? How do we flex our gratitude muscles so that way we understand how to keep boosting our self confidence and our self esteem? And then, session 8, our last session, is all about celebrating everything that we learned and then co-creating that ADHD care plan so that you're ready to go back to your child's doctor and remember to show off your skills, everything that you've learned, the names of medicines that you're on, or that you realize that you want to do therapy or whatnot, or you can show off the cool skills you've learned, how to calm down, right? So we that last class is really special because kids really can kind of review everything that they've learned and realize, gosh, they've learned a lot in these 8 weeks. So this is a great testimonial from some of my graduates. So my son and I just completed the Teach Me ADHD class. I'm so glad that we took it. It was very well thought out and executed. I saw improvement, and I noticed that he's now more aware of his struggles with ADHD. But not only is he aware, he's started implementing some of those strategies to overcome those struggles. I would highly recommend this class. A lot of people are struggling with mental health right now because of the global pandemic. Getting into doctor's offices safely and in a timely manner is difficult, but Dr. Bauer does an amazing job offering this class in a virtual format. Highly recommended. So thank you to these detectives who took the time to put in this testimonial. So I know you're curious about the price, so let's talk value first. So at the end of the 8 weeks, you have a common language so you understand each other, work together, and follow the evidence so you can tackle any challenge that comes your way, right? So this is what's included in the Teach Me ADHD course. You've got two options for April. I have Sundays 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time starting April 18th, and then Mondays 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time starting April 19th. It's 8 weeks total. We do skip Memorial Day weekend, so it does lag into the first 2 weeks of June because of that. But it's has all of these different things, but you also have less arguing, fun moments together, and an increase in confidence. But that's not the whole story because I want you to really succeed. So again, I mentioned there's the 8 training mission meetings that are virtual and on Zoom, kind of in this format. But kids get to see each other, right? It's not where it's a webinar like this where you can't see the other people watching. It's actually everybody's going to be on the screen. Everybody can see each other. Everybody can interact with each other. So that's going to be really important. But you also have a video supplement. So it's pre-recorded information that I do each week. So that way, in case you have to miss because life gets in the way, somebody gets sick, or there's a conflict, don't worry. You can just watch the video to make up for that session. Or if you one of the parents hasn't been able to reliably get there on time to participate, they can then watch the video supplement. So at least they're aware of what's being taught and then be a part of the family mission. Or you just want to review and you're like, what did she say about this? I don't remember. Let's go back and review. So you'll have access to the videos for 6 whole months from your first training mission meeting. You also get a supply box for everything you need, so you do not have to scramble or shop for everything that you need. I package these separately in 9 different bags in a box, and I ask parents to tell their junior detectives to not open the bag until the day of, right before class or during class, because one, it keeps kids like excited, like what are we going to talk about today? And then two, it also makes sure that none of the supplies are lost before you need them. So you get the supply box shipped to your house for the entire 8 week course. And then you also have a detectives only forum. So what does that mean? You have 6 months of support from your first training mission meeting because it takes at least 67 days to build habits of practicing something every day, and life happens. So again, I talked to you about the importance of connection and ongoing support. And, quite frankly, life doesn't go by the book, right? So you might have these skills, but then trying to generalize it in different arenas and different kind of situations can be hard. So that's why you have this detectives only forum for you as you're applying these different skills and chugging along, or if your child's plateauing or their motivation has waned, getting tips and strategies and support from not only current detectives but past detectives is really important, as well as from headquarters. And then as a bonus, I will also be sending a free ADHD ebook, Getting the Care Your Child Needs with an ADHD Care Plan, so that you have additional information beyond. So if you'd like that after viewing this webinar, just let me know. And then there's a What I Love About You worksheet that I've developed too, because I'm always looking for fun ways to improve parent-child interactions through fun and different activities. So this is another testimonial from another detective family. This is an awesome class in which I was privileged to engage. A wealth of information was given every week. I strongly encourage senior detectives to take notes as I did. We covered so many areas that were helpful, including eating right, the importance of sleep, medication, what to talk to the doctor about, handling emotions, ways to relieve stress, and automatic negative thoughts, just to name a few. anyone that has a child with ADHD would do well to consider this. I wish Dr. Nerissa had been around when my son was small. So that was from Notorious Nana, and she took the class with RP13. They were so fun to have in the class, and I thank you for that shout out, Notorious Nana. So the price of the Teach Me ADHD course is $497. That includes the 8 weeks of interactive Zoom class facilitated by myself from headquarters, where you see and interact with other junior, senior detectives, up to 10 per class because I want to allot enough time for interaction, but get through the material in the 60 minutes every week. You get a supply box shipped out to you, so you don't have to scramble or find things for the different things that we're going to be doing. There's a video supplement which you can access for 6 months from the date of your first training mission meeting and look at any of the modules or any of the lessons. So if you miss one or just need a booster, you can definitely watch it on demand. And then you have that Detectives Only forum, again, for ongoing support. So that is the registration link. It's open now. Or if you'd like, you can scan the QR code. Let me get rid of little Gemma there. Hold on one second. I'm going to actually switch to another screen, and then you can point it at the QR code if you're watching this on replay. Okay, so when you register, you'll get a thank you email that looks like this. It says, "We're so excited to have you as our newest senior and junior detectives." This is what the checkout page looks like. And make sure that when you do this checkout page, that you put your full name and your email address, because I do send out emails throughout the course with important details. I also make sure you create your password so you can access the video supplement. You'll want to make sure to include your full address, because remember that supply box has got to get to you. So I need your address on file, and then your phone number, your child's first name, and their age. So those are important informations. Do not skip any of those when you are registering. And one last testimonial. So this was from LP 5 and AP 51. We were one of the families, and I will say that this class was expertly crafted to appeal to kids. Each participant was a detective with a code name. How fun is that? And we learned a great variety of strategies and information about ADHD in a way that was engaging, interactive, and stuck for my wiggly dude. Each mission assigned a task at home that didn't feel like homework, but aimed to develop new habits and routines to address the deficits related to ADHD. My kids learned ways to identify the impact of ADHD in their lives and language to advocate and communicate with their peers and supportive adults. I give this course 5 great big stars and a bear hug for the thoughtful moments of affirmation spread throughout the training in super secret missions. Thank you for developing this course. It was just what we needed at the exact time we needed it. I mean, that was amazing. Thank you, AP51, for taking the time to leave that recommendation and to share your thoughts about the class. I really enjoyed having them. So hope to welcome you and your child into the All Deeds Help Detective Agency. So again, you can just point your smartphone to that QR code and it'll lead you to the registration page, or you can follow that URL link at the bottom of of the video here. Registration will close after each session, caps at 10 senior and junior detective pairs, or by April 11th to allow for time for me to ship boxes to your home. So again, don't delay. If you're thinking of joining, please do. I'd love to have you. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at letstalkkidshealth@gmail.com. But again, registration is already open, so don't delay. If you're thinking about joining us for the April sessions, please join us. I'd love to have you and welcome you into the agency. All right, that's it for now. Oh, and hold on, I have a comment here. Oh, thank you so much. I unfortunately I don't know who said that. It's just a Facebook user, but thank you so much for leaving that comment. I have enjoyed every single one of the 22 senior and junior detectives who've already gone through this class. I'm hoping to welcome up to 20 more in April, and then I won't be launching again until September after Labor Day. But that's going to be my pattern here is I'm going to open up classes in January start, an April start after spring break, and then, or before spring break, and then after Labor Day. So keep those in mind. If this next two class times don't work for you, there is an interest list available. So again, you can email me with that, or you can head to my blog, and there's a sign up list there for interest so that I can keep you informed on the next dates and times. Thank you for watching. Thanks from headquarters. Signing off.